serious decay or deterioration of the principles of religion, either Krishna will come himself as he has done, or he will send, or he'll expand himself as an avatar. And there are different types of avatars like Matsya and Kurma and Varaha, as well as Lord Ramachandra and others. And he'll reestablish the principles of religion. So he explains that. He tells Arjuna that whenever he comes, Paritrayam sadhanam vinasaya chaduskritam dharma samsta panartaya sambhavami atmamayaya, that he comes to deliver the devotees from difficulty and to reestablish the principles of religion, and also to destroy the demons, as he did. So now he's explaining to Arjuna that as one surrenders unto me, I proportionately reveal myself to them. That means that if we surrender 1% to Krishna, then Krishna will reveal 1% of who he is to you. If you surrender 50% to Krishna, he'll reveal 50% of his transcendental qualities. If you surrender 100% to the Lord, as Arjuna does, then he reveals everything to you. So, in the beginning of the material creation, the first living entity is Lord Brahma. And Brahma is expanded from Krishna's expansion as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So Brahma is the first human being. And it makes sense if you were to start a new company, let's say. The first person you would hire is not the person that cleans the toilet, but you would hire the CEO. So in the same way, the first living entity in the material world is Brahma. He is the most intelligent living being. Of course, all his intelligence comes from Krishna. And Krishna teaches Brahma, who after a very long period of tapasya, where Brahma was meditating to understand his relationship with Krishna, when Krishna was satisfied by his meditations, he revealed himself, and also he gave Brahma the eyes to see the spiritual world and to understand what is the purpose of human life. The purpose of human life is to rehabilitate ourselves in the material world so we can go back to the spiritual world where we came from. Because of our free will, even though we're all the children of Krishna, and we were all originally with Krishna in the spiritual world, we voluntarily chose to separate ourselves from the Lord and come to the material world and try to dominate some part of it and exploit it for our own material desires. So this is a sick type of mentality, because we are not this body. We have a temporary material body covering our soul, and we have an eternal soul. So if we can reestablish our relationship with Krishna, which is called Sanatan Dharma, the eternal occupational duty that every living entity, especially human being, has, and that is to develop love and devotion for the Lord and engage in bhakti, or pure acts of devotion for the pleasure of the Lord. Right now, we are conditioned by three modes of nature: sattva, rajas, and tamas. And because of these three supernatural forces, we are forced to change bodies. We change our bodies during one lifetime. And then when we die, based on our karma, or the good and bad activities we perform during our lifetime, and the desires that we have that are unfulfilled, we take birth again. And there are 8,400,000 species of that we can take birth in. So there are aquatics, there are plants, there are reptiles and insects, there are birds, there are mammals, and there are human beings, and there are devatas. So depending on our previous karma, we take birth again in a particular type of body. To come to the human form of body is a rare thing and very special. The human form of body is specifically meant for self-realization. When you self-realize, you realize that you're the eternal servant of Krishna. And at that time, when we act as the eternal servant of Krishna, as Arjuna is going to do in the Bhagavad Gita, we can become liberated from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, and go back to where we came from, the spiritual world, where we have a spiritual body that is not subject to old age, disease, and death, and rebirth again. And we engage in transcendental pastimes. All of that is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the only book on this earth planet that can tell you exactly what is happening in the spiritual world, where there is no birth, death, old age, and disease. There's no other holy book that has knowledge, specific knowledge of who God is and what is going on in the spiritual world. This is why Bharat, or as people say India, but the real name is not India. India was given by the British because the British dominated India for at least 250 years. But the real name of India is Bharat, named after Bharat, who was a son of Rishabha Dev, who was an incarnation of Krishna. So anyway, now we're in this predicament. We have left the spiritual world, we've fallen into the material world, and we have a material body that's constantly changing. The body begins microscopically. In order to see that little sperm coming from the father to the womb of the mother, you need a microscope. And therefore, that validates the Vedic tradition that the soul is 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. But the soul is so powerful that it can fill the whole body with consciousness. So, therefore, we all begin like a little fish that's microscopic. And then as soon as that little fish enters the ovum of the mother supplies the material elements to form the body. But that little sperm carries all the intellectual property, all the knowledge by which a perfect body can be formed in the womb of the mother. This is a miracle. Nobody understands how it's exactly happening because it's mysterious. But it'll happen if we have a healthy body and a healthy mind. So, therefore, in the Vedic history, there's the history of Prahlad Maharaj. His father was Hiranyakashipu, who was a demon, who was an asura. And his mother, Kayadu, conceived him with the seed of the father. So the Devatas at that time kidnapped Kayadu, who was pregnant, and they wanted to kill her and the baby in the womb because the father was Hiranyakashipu, a terrible demon. However, Narada Muni stopped them and said, you cannot kill the mother nor the child because the child is a pure devotee. And they got confused. They said, what? He said, the father is Hiranyakashipu. How can he be a pure devotee? He said, no, I'm telling you he's a pure devotee. I'm going to take the mother to my ashram. I'm going to protect her until the boy is born. So Narada Muni took Kayadu and he protected her. And every day he would chant holy mantras and he would teach her the same knowledge that Krishna taught Brahma previously, and that is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is actually a short book. It has 700 verses, but the whole philosophy of Sanatana Dharma is explained in this one book. So, during the pregnancy of Kayadu, Narada Muni was speaking to her always about Krishna, and also chanting mantras, and also giving her prasadam, food offered to Krishna first, and then offered to Kayadu. So the body of the child was made with prasadam. And the little fetus has consciousness, and because Narada Muni was always explaining to Kayadu the philosophy of Sanatana Dharma, the little baby in the womb was educated. There is such a thing as prenatal consciousness, and because of that, it's possible to teach a fetus the philosophy of Krishna consciousness even while they're in the womb, because sound penetrates, can go in all directions. So when Prahlad Maharaj was born, he was already a devotee, even though his father was a demon and his mother also. And right from the beginning of his life, he was a devotee of Krishna. When he got a little bit older and his father put him in a school to teach him to be a first-class demon, the boy refused to accept that education. And every time the teachers would leave the classroom, he would begin to preach to the other boys, don't listen to anything they say. The purpose of life is to become self-realized by understanding Vedic knowledge and then engaging in bhakti, pure devotion for Krishna. Don't listen to what they're saying. They want us to believe that there's no God. They want us to believe when you die, everything is over. There's no more existence after death. They want us to believe that there's no law of karma. There are no modes of nature, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They want us to believe that everything is relative. There are no absolutes. And therefore, they want us to believe that you only have one life, and don't waste your life believing things that are not true, like a spiritual world like Vaikuntha or Goloka or God or Devata or any of this stuff. Just enjoy yourself, earn a lot of money, spend it for your sense gratification as much as possible, and when you die, it's all over. There's no judgment, there's no Yamaraj. All that is mythology. So this is what they teach today. This is what they were teaching millions of years ago when Prahlad Maharaj was, thousands and thousands of years ago when Prahlad Maharaj was born, and he went to the demon school. So eventually the teachers began to complain to Hiranyakashipu, your son, we're trying to teach him to be a asura, but he's a sura. He's a devotee of Vishnu or Krishna. And Hiranyakashipu hated Krishna because his brother Hiranyaka was killed by Vishnu. So he called his son, he said, Prahlad, I want you to be like me, but your teachers say you are a devotee. How did this happen? And so Prahlad said, dear father, you are the best of the demons. That means he's the worst, right? So he said, I have been educated by Narada Muni. Therefore, I've learned that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Hiranyakashipu, his father, became very angry, and he decided to kill his own child. And he tried to kill Prahlad in many different ways, throwing him off a mountain, throwing him into a pit with poisonous snakes, and even he forced his wife to cook food with poison in it, and they fed it to him. But because Prahlad was a devotee, first of all, whenever he was offered food, first he would offer it to Krishna, so it would become prasadam, and then he would eat it. And because of that, he was protected by Krishna all the time. So eventually the father became frustrated, and he realized he couldn't kill his son for some mysterious reason. So then he decided, let me kill his god, because Krishna had appeared previously and killed his brother Hiranyaksha. So therefore he said, Prahlad, I want you to tell me where your God is. And Prahlad said, my dear father, he said, he's in your heart. He's also in my heart. He said, I don't see him. He said, and so Hiranyakashipu pointed to one column in his big palace. He said, is he in this column? And Prahlad said, "He is in everything, Dad." So he smashed the column with his sword, and out came this incredible incarnation of Krishna as a half lion, half man, Nrsingadev. And we have a small deity of Nrsingadev here with Lakshmi. And Nrsingadev grabbed Hiranyakashipu, put him on his legs while he was sitting, and tore him apart with his nails. Of course, a lion has very sharp nails. And this was unimaginable to Hiranyakashipu. Why? Because he had received previously a benediction from Lord Brahma that he could not be killed during the day or at night. He could not be killed by any demon or any deva, but he forgot to mention human beings. And then again, he could not be killed by any weapon. And so forth. He got all these benedictions from Brahma. Brahma could not give him amara, or eternal life, because Brahma himself is not eternal. But he gave him all these different conditions. So Hiranyakashipu was convinced that he was immortal. But yet, Nrsingadev appeared. He's not a human being. He's not an animal. He's a cross between the two. And he did not kill him either in the air or on the ground. He killed him on his lap. And he did not kill him during the day or at night. He killed him at dusk when the day is ending and the night is just beginning. And he didn't kill him with a weapon. He killed him with his own nails. So without violating the benedictions that Brahma gave Hiranyakashipu, Nrsingadev killed Hiranyakashipu. And then he was roaring, because he's a lion. He was roaring so loudly that everyone in the universe became afraid. Brahma became afraid. Lakshmi became afraid. Everyone. And at that point, Lord Brahma said to Prahlad, he said, "Prahlad, for some reason or other, you're not afraid. Here, take this garland and put it on the neck of Nrsingadev, and we hope he will calm down." So Prahlad, who was a devotee, had no fear of Nrsingadev, this fabulous, unbelievable incarnation of Krishna as a half lion, half man. And he went up to the Lord and gave him a garland of flowers. And then that calmed down Nrsingadev, and he was very pleased with this young boy. At that time, Prahlad Maharaj was only 5 years old. And he said, "Prahlad, you are such a sincere devotee of mine. You ask me for any benediction and I will give it to you." And Prahlad said, "My dear Lord," he said, "I don't need anything. In fact, don't test me or offer me some benediction, because I don't need anything. I know how to chant your holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." And I follow the rules and regulations of spiritual life that you have established, the yamas and niyamas, or things you should not do and the things you should do. So the yamas are no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, and no illicit activities outside of marriage. And then the positive things one should do is chant always the mantra Hare Krishna, and listen regularly on a daily basis Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees. And number 3, offer your food first to Krishna, and only vegetarian things and vegetarian foods, and no pyaz or lasan, or no garlic and onion, and offer it with love to the Lord, and He'll offer it back to you as prasadam, His mercy. And number 4, always visit the temple and associate with genuine devotees who follow the rules and regulations of spiritual life, and engage in seva. If you do these 4 things and avoid the other 4 things, Krishna will always protect you, and you will go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So, In this way, Lord Nrsingadev was very pleased with Prahlad Maharaj, and Prahlad Maharaj did not want any material benediction from the Lord, but the Lord kept insisting. So Prahlad Maharaj said, "My dear Lord Nrsingadev, if you want to give me something, then please purify all my material desires in my heart and replace them with desires to please you. And in this way, protect me so I can always be engaged in your service, pleasing you." That was the only thing he would accept from the Lord. So that's not anything material. Usually, people go to God, whether it's Nrsingadev or Krishna or Shivaji or Brahma. Shiva and Brahma are not God, but they're very close to God. So, and they ask for material benedictions, for asirbat, and they ask for material benedictions. But that is not a good idea, because receiving material benedictions means you will remain in the cycle of birth and death. But what Prahlad accepted as a benediction was, purify my heart of all material desires and replace them with desires only to please you, my Lord, and protect me so I can engage in your service. So that is the point of this verse also. When we begin to surrender to Krishna, Sharanam, at that point, Krishna begins to reveal knowledge to us, by which we can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. This is explained also in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Te sam satata yuktanam, prajatam pritipurvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tam, yenamam upayantite. The Lord says to Arjuna also, always engage in my service, always think of me, always offer your love and homage to me. If you do this, Arjuna, I promise you, I will give you the knowledge by which you come back to me. So this is the 10th verse of the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And then Krishna, after that, the next verse says, Te sam evanukam partam aham agyanamam tama nasyami apabhavastu jnanadipena basvato. And it says, to show special mercy to my devotees, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So in two ways, Krishna will bless his devotee, as he blessed Prahlad Maharaj, first by giving knowledge, and then destroying false knowledge and false desires for sense gratification from the heart of the devotee, so the devotee can be always engaged in the service of the Lord. So, therefore, the verse today, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O Arjuna. The meaning of this verse is that Krishna will proportionately bless the devotee to the degree the devotee surrenders to the Lord and follows his instructions. So just like if you're a parent and your child says to you, Pitaji, Mataji, whatever you say and whatever you want me to do and whatever you instruct me to do, I will follow you. So you would be very happy if the child says that when they're 10, if they say it again when they're 16, if they say it again when they're 24, if they say it again when they're 36, and so forth. You would be a very happy parent. So Krishna is the parent of all living entities. And when a living entity in the human body says to Krishna, like Prahlad, I don't want anything material, my dear Lord, but please purify my heart of all material desires and let me desire only to please you. Protect me so I can engage in your service unfailingly my whole life. That is called the Lord's Prayer in Sanskrit. Just like in English, in Christianity, there's the Lord's Prayer. O Lord Jesus, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and protect us from all sinful activities, just as and forgive us from all sinful activities as we will forgive others. So that's the Lord's Prayer in English in Christianity. But the Lord's Prayer in Sanskrit is what Prahlad Maharaj said. Please, my Lord, please take away all my material desires. Let them be replaced with desires to serve you with love and devotion, and protect me so I can always engage in your service. That is the Lord's Prayer in Sanskrit. So, therefore, surrender or saranam to Krishna has 6 aspects to it. This is explained in the 18th chapter, 66th verse, where it says, Anukulyena sankalpa pratikulyena varjanam rakshisyaisiti vishvaso gotritre varanam tata atmaniksepa karpanya tadvidu saranam gati. So this saranam, this surrender to Krishna, has 6 aspects to it. The first one is anukulyena sankalpa. We should make a decision to always accept the instructions of Krishna. In other words, when Krishna says to Arjuna, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta prayachati tadaham bhakti aparatam astami prayatat manaha. He says in the 9th chapter, 26th verse, Arjuna, offer me with love and devotion a leaf, water, fruit, and flower, and I will accept it. So, Krishna is giving us our dietary choices. He does not mention meat, fish, eggs, or murgi. He says basically vegetables, fruits, and grains, and lentils, and milk, and water, and sugar. He does not mention meat. So meat eating is a big no. So you have to keep your child quiet. You have to keep your child quiet. Meat eating is a big no. In fact, outside in our displays, we are showing 3 big panels. The first panel is based on the Constitution of the United States, where the American Constitution guarantees life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we have free will. We have limited free will. Our free will is limited to either we accept Krishna's instructions or we reject them. So on the panel, it shows all the right decisions to make on one side to end up being happy, being properly educated, and becoming a devotee. And on the other side, it shows all the wrong decisions we can make in our life by which we end up unhappy, miserable, unhealthy, and illusioned. So the Constitution says we guarantee life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, but we have to make the right decisions to attain that happiness. Most people are making the wrong decisions. Why is that? Because there are 4 universal principles of spirituality. They are mercy, truthfulness, cleanliness, and austerity, or tapasya. So, mercy is destroyed by intoxication, and cleanliness is destroyed by illicit sex, and truthfulness is destroyed by gambling, and austerity is destroyed by the false ego that develops false concepts of life, such as animals have no soul, therefore we can kill them and eat them. So therefore, from that point on, when one violates those 4 universal principles of spirituality, they end up being miserable, they end up having broken relationships, they end up doing many sinful activities, and eventually they remain in the cycle of birth and death. And the proof of this is the next panel, there are 3 panels outside. They're very big. You can go and read them now. The second panel explains how Krishna 5,000 years ago warned people not to eat meat, not to intoxicate, including coffee and tea, not to engage in illicit activities, illicit sexual activities, and not to gamble. But yet, these 4 things have become part of the American culture today, as well as the European culture, as well as the Indian culture. And the statistics that you will see outside prove that what Krishna said 5,000 years ago was absolutely the truth. Every year in the United States, due to intoxicants, including legal and illegal drugs, between 880,000 people to 1 million people die of overdoses of these drugs. You have all kinds of drugs that are being sold legally and illegally in this country, and a massive number of people are taking them, and a huge number of people are dying because of overdoses. Secondly, the intoxication and then meat eating. The WHO, World Health Organization, declared in 2015 that processed meat definitely causes cancer. And then the International Society for Cancer Research published in 2018 that all meat, whether processed or unprocessed, causes at least 25 types of disease, and the big ticket diseases are cancer and heart disease and diabetes and mad cow disease and so forth. Now, the statistics prove this. In America, every year, over 600,000 people die of cancer. In America, every year, almost 700,000 people die of heart attacks. It's not a surprise. The World Health Organization and the International Society for Cancer Research both have claimed categorically, unequivocally, that meat, whether it's processed or unprocessed, causes cancer and heart attack. So, and other problems too, especially diabetes. And then number 3, the truthfulness is destroyed by gambling. Now, in America, there are 2 million addictive gamblers and 20 million people that gamble off and on. In 2016, $117 billion were lost gambling in America. That's how serious the problem is. And it ruins people's lives. It's a cause of suicide, and it's a cause of different types of theft and cheating to feed their addiction to gamble. And then finally, the ability to self-control, or tapasya, is destroyed by false ego. And when one has a false ego, which is evolved by identifying with the temporary material body, one develops or is very prone to accepting false concepts, such as there's no God, when you die everything is over, there's no such thing as a judgment, there's no laws of karma, and there's no such thing as Yamaraj, and there are no absolutes, everything is relative. Therefore, you only live once. The whole Christian church teaches you only live once. All the Abrahamic religions teach also you only live once. And therefore, the atheists say there's no God, and when you die, there's nothing. So, and you only live once. That's validated by the Christian church and the Abrahamic religions. Then a person is convinced, I should engage in making as much money as possible and spend that money as much as I can for my own selfish purposes. So this is destroying the fine qualities of human beings, and they're living like animals. An animal will only eat, sleep, mate, and defend. They don't ask any questions like Arjuna, what is the purpose of life? So today, the culture of America has become meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. And the statistics prove it. Now, the good news is that it is possible to not be duped or fooled by all this false propaganda that's taking place in schools. Like, for example, in schools, they teach kids everything started by a big bang. If I make a big bang in your kitchen, is it going to create something or destroy something? You tell me. And they teach that we all come from monkeys. I don't have a monkey in my ancestry. If you think you have a monkey in your ancestry, raise your hand. These are all nonsense concepts that have never actually been proven. And then they also teach gender neutrality, and they teach critical race theory, and they teach all these nonsense ideas that are false and have no actual validity. So, therefore, the schools are miseducating the kids. The culture has become addictive to these four self-destructive behaviors: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. And therefore, the whole fiber of goodness in people is being destroyed today. And they're just preoccupied with making money and spending it, going to Walmart, this place, that place, buying all kinds of gadgets and cars, and complicating their lives. Whereas only 2 generations ago, most people, or a lot of people in India, lived in villages. They had their own farms, they had their own cows, they had at least 3 to 4 generations in their house, all working cooperatively. They were peaceful, they were happy, and they lived like this for millions of years until the Industrial Revolution came and the sick attraction to Western culture due to the British that poisoned India. They took over the educational system in 1825. They opened up slaughterhouses to kill cows. Today you have 30,000 slaughterhouses in India. And basically, Lord Macaulay in 1825, he asked a South Indian Brahmin, he said, "Sir, your people are good. Our people in England are not so good. Your people walk around even at night safely. In England, especially London, it's dangerous to walk around at night." And he said, "What is your secret? Why are your people so good?" And the South Indian Brahmana said, "Well, because number 1, we protect cows. Number 2, we protect women. Number 3, we protect children. Number 4, we protect elderly people. And number 5, we do not engage in blatant sinful activities like meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication." Lord Macaulay took it seriously, what he said, and the first thing he did was he spoke to the Parliament of London, and he said, if you want to subjugate these people, these Indian people, you have to destroy their religion. As long as they're following their religion, they'll never be subjugated by us. So what did he do? He went back to India and he opened the first slaughterhouse in Mumbai. Secondly, he and other British rulers of India at that time stopped the Indian system of education, which was working very well. There was very little illiteracy at that time because they had a very good system of education. And he convinced the Indians, let us, the British, organize your education system, and we'll teach all your kids English, and obviously he said, you have this this village system that you give a certain amount of land, and all the production of that land is to pay for the teachers and the children's education and also for irrigation in your village. We'll take that system over. We guarantee you that we'll give you the money to do those things, but we'll organize the teaching. So unfortunately, many of the villages and many of in the big cities, they accepted the British takeover of the education system. In 1931, approximately 100 years later, Gandhi gave a speech to in India to all the British leaders, and he said, in 100 years, you have ruined our education system. You have ruined the equality of all the kids. They were all being educated together, Brahmana kids, Sudra kids, and so forth. And you have created illiteracy in our country. Whereas before we didn't have illiteracy, right? He was really upset. And this is what actually happened. The British have educated 4 or 5 generations of young Indians, and they, at one time, a Brahmin priest went to London and was speaking to a British lord, and the Lord said to him in a somewhat of a sarcastic way, he said, Brahmaji, he said, can you teach us British to be Brahmins? And the gentleman said, yes, I can. He said, what do we have to do? He said, you give up meat eating, gambling, intoxication, and illicit sex, and you take up Sanatana Dharma principles. The Lord began to laugh, and he said, this is impossible for us Englishmen. He said, by the way, he said, I want to tell you something. Your best youth come to England to learn from us how to do these 4 things. And he was right. And because of that, you end up with people like Nehru and others who, although they're born in India, they're actually Britishers. Nehru went completely against Gandhi after Gandhi died. Gandhi wanted to send all the people from the big cities back to the villages, and he refused to buy cotton clothing from the British because the British would take the cotton from India, send it to Manchester to their mills, and then bring it back and sell it to the Indians. And he said, no, you make your own cloth with the charka, and you stop supporting the British, and so forth. He wanted to decentralize India. The British centralized India by building the biggest rail or railroad system in the world, by which very easily people in the villages could take a train and come into Mumbai or Chennai or Bangalore or Hyderabad, all these big cities, and work in the factories. There were no factories in India 200 years ago, and people were happy. They were mostly living in villages. They were not really big cities. There were a few, but not many. And they were producing their own food, and they were not importing anything. One village was expert in one thing, another village was expert in another thing. So whatever was lacking, they traded their goods, and everyone was satisfied. People lived with, as I said, families in which there would be 4 or 5 generations living together and working cooperatively. They had their own educational system. They had their own finance system that supported their village economy. All that was destroyed. The British were more evil than the Muslims. The Muslims were brutal. The British were subtle. And their whole strategy was to destroy Sanatana Dharma. See? And it's going on still today. India has become one of the major exporters of meat. In fact, at one point, there were 900 million cows in India. Today, there's hardly 140 million cows. What happened to all those cows? They were slaughtered. And most of them were Desi cows. And now they're replacing the Desi cow with the Western cows. So these are all major problems, and it's all because of this false propaganda of Western philosophy, Western industrialization, Western type of education, etc. So the solution to all this is is in the Bhagavad Gita, and we summarize it as unite for goodness, act with kindness. In other words, if people can learn to live in the sattva guna, the mode of goodness, there are three supernatural forces. There's sattva guna, raja guna, and tamasi guna. Most people are tamasi and rajasic. Very few people are sattvic. And of those who are sattvic, they have a fluctuation of sometimes being sattvic, sometimes being rajasic, sometimes being tamasic. So even the sattvic guna is contaminated to a certain degree, but at least it is the platform from which someone can attain Suddha Sattva, or transcendental goodness. Because it's only in Sattva Guna that one can learn Sanatana Dharma principles. If someone is Rajasic or Tamasic, it's impossible for them to understand anything spiritual. And this is the problem. Like, for example, previously, Hindi movies or the Bollywood movies had very good messages. How much mother loves her son or daughter, how much the children love their parents, or how much the mother and father sacrificed for their children. I remember in 1972, I went from Paris to Marrakesh, which is a very small, somewhat touristic town in the mountains of Morocco. And I was a devotee at that time, and I was dressed in kurta and dhoti, and I went there to preach. And I arrived there late at night. You have to first go to Casablanca with the Air France airplane, and then from Casablanca you get a 2-engine plane that takes you to Marrakesh. And I arrived there like 12 o'clock at night, and then I took a bus into this small town. And as soon as I stepped off the bus, I heard, Hari Ram, Hari Krishna. I was shocked. I looked up, and it's a Muslim dressed in a burqa. It's a cloak. And I said to him in French, I said, comment vous savez ça? I said, how do you know this? He said, I saw the movie. I said, what movie is that? I said, Hari Ram, Hari Krishna, Damari Dam. So this was a movie made in India to make a joke out of the Hare Krishna movement. So I chant the name of Ram, I chant the name of Krishna, and I smoke marijuana, right? So, but because at that time all the themes of the Bollywood movies were good, and therefore they were being shown on a regular basis in the communist countries and in the Muslim countries. Muslim countries were showing the Hindi movies or the Indian-made movies because they were good. They had good messages. Then, when you come up to the 1990s, 2000, there was a shift. And in order to convince people to watch television, they put the Ramayana and Mahabharata on television. And it was so impelling that everything would stop when the programs would come on. The taxi drivers would stop driving taxis, people would stop working, and they'd look at the television to see Ramayana and Mahabharata. So then people started really watching television. And then, little by little, they started putting in Bollywood movies instead of Ramayana and Mahabharata. And now, they watch most of the time these Hollywood movies. Now, there's no difference now between Hollywood and Bollywood, because in order to get people to pay money to go to a movie theater to watch a movie, they have to make the movies more violent and more sexual. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on in India. And it's actually destroying the culture of Sanatan Dharma in India. Bollywood has destroyed more of the culture than even the British were able to destroy. So, therefore, the cultural shift which is taking place in America and also in Europe and also now in India is devastating the culture of these countries. For example, because of illicit sex and sexual addiction, every year in America there are over 600,000 rapes. And there are also other very dangerous things that are happening to people. There are 1 million prostitutes in the United States. There are over 600,000 abortions. And there are over 600,000 divorces in this country. Those statistics are even greater in India right now, even more than the United States. This is because of the cultural shift that was started by the British in 1825 and continued even after the independence of India. And now, because of Bollywood and other influences, the Hinduism is being destroyed. Why? Well, at this very moment, 50% of Hindus eat meat on a regular basis. Another 25% eat meat outside of the house. That means there's hardly 25% of the Hindu population that are actually vegetarians now in India. So these four things were Krishna warned people 5,000 years ago in the Bhagavad Gita to avoid: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. But unfortunately, these four things have become part of the culture. So if people learn to live a sattvic life, and if you go to our panels outside and you can look at it, we explain what is sattvic life for economy, for meditation, for work, for military, for all these different aspects of life, finance, etc. Then one comes to a level where they have the intellectual, let's say, capability to understand higher order spiritual concepts as taught by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. So the idea of sattvic life is good, whether you're an atheist, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Jew, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Sikh, whether you're a Hindu, whether you're a Jain, whether you're a Buddhist. It makes sense to live in the mode of goodness and make all the right choices of remaining in the mode of goodness. So this is explained in our pamphlet. It's free, you can have it. And our booklet also, we have a whole booklet that explains this. So the mode of goodness is explained by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in several different chapters. And he says, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. This is the 14th chapter, 17th verse of Bhagavad Gita. Sacrifice performed according to the directions of scriptures as a matter of duty by those who desire no reward is of the nature of goodness. So this is a very important verse. It's the 17th chapter, 11th verse of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is basically explaining that sacrifice. Now, when you're a parent, you have to sacrifice for your child or your children. And but what does that mean exactly? That means following the directions of Shastra. That is sacrifice. So Shastra explains that one should not eat meat. Shastra explains one should not violate these four self-destructive behaviors. And Shastra says that you should act as a matter of duty. So acting as a matter of duty is different than having, let's say, a love marriage. A love marriage is based on body-to-body attraction. Acting as a matter of duty is based on soul-to-soul relationship. In other words, when we understand that I'm not this body, I actually have an eternal soul, and also in my heart, where my soul is, Krishna is there as Paramatma, the super soul. Therefore, if I see someone, basically, I shouldn't see the body. I should see the fact that there is Krishna is present in the heart, and that they have also an eternal soul, just like I do. Therefore, that is the way to see people. And therefore, we should develop these soul-to-soul relationships. When there's a saying in English that's very important, a family that prays together stays together. A family that prays together stays together. So therefore, when we come to the temple, it's to pray to the Lord. Now, but what is a prayer? A prayer is not a demand to give me something. A prayer means you have to have knowledge of who God is, and you have to be able to glorify God's qualities. Just like the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma spoke this and wrote this over in the beginning of time. Chintamani prakatasat masukalpa vriksha lakshavrite susurabir abhipalayantam lakshmi sahasra satasam brahma sevyamanam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. This is the Brahma Samhita spoken by Brahma himself, glorifying Krishna. And he says that the spiritual world is made of Chintamani. Chintamani means a touchstone. It's something that when you touch it, it can give you any benediction you want. Therefore, the whole spiritual world is made of these touchstones where there is no scarcity of anything. And it also explains that there are thousands and millions of Lakshmis, and they're all glorifying Krishna with choice prayers. And it gives you, how is Brahma writing this? Because Krishna gave him the eyes to actually see the spiritual world. Just like Arjuna wanted to see the universal form, or the Virat Rupa of Krishna, Krishna gave Arjuna the eyes to see his Virat Rupa, the gigantic form that encompasses the whole universe. So, when we glorify Krishna, Krishna takes a special interest in us and protects us and gives us knowledge by which we can come closer and closer to him. So therefore, this saranagati, surrender to the Lord, is based on accepting the instructions of the Lord as our culture. So that culture of vegetarianism, that culture of offering food first to the Lord so that he offers it back as prasadam, chanting the glories of the Lord by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, or the Purusha Sukta, or the Narayana Sukta, or the Vishnu Sahasranam Sotram, or especially the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So one time a gentleman asked me a question after class. He said, "So what about Lord Rama? You're always talking about Krishna. What about Lord Rama?" I said, "That's not true." I said, "Our mantra that we say every day is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." We're saying the name of Rama as much as we say the name of Krishna. So, Rama and Krishna are the same person. But Rama is expansion of Krishna's expansion of Vishnu. But he has all the power of Krishna. There's no difference as far as potency goes. Lord Rama came for a special purpose in this world. He came to establish two things. One, Ram Raja. He exhibited what a perfect king is. And when there's a perfect king, all the people in the kingdom are happy and prosperous. And they live a spiritual life, not a materialistic life. They don't work in factories. They don't drive around in Teslas. But they have everything they need to live peacefully and happily. And secondly, Lord Rama came to establish Ekapatni Vrat, that a high-class man and a high-class woman always stay faithful to each other throughout life. There's no polygamy, there's no divorce or anything like that. So Rama manifested this 1.7 million years ago. 1.7 million years ago, he came in the Treta Yuga. So, therefore, the whole culture of Bharat is based on the example and the teachings of Lord Rama, how to relate to people. Like, for example, after Rama's father exiled him, kicked him out of Ayodhya, based on his foster mother's insistence that Rama should be exiled and her son Bharat should be the king. So after Bharat came back, he was out of Ayodhya at the time that happened. When he came back and he found that out from his mother, he got really upset. He said, "How could you do such a thing?" He said, "Rama is the real king. He's older than I am, and I have complete respect for him, and I love him. How could you do such a thing?" He got really upset with his mother. And therefore, he organized all the people of Ayodhya to leave Ayodhya, go to the forest, and beg Rama to come back. So when they all arrived in the forest, Rama was living there with his wife and Lakshman in a deep forest. He had matted hair. He would sleep on the ground. And he was living a very simple life in the forest. And the forest was dangerous at that time. In any case, when he came with his whole army and all the people, and they begged Rama to come back, first of all, Rama and Sita came in front of Dasarath's first wife, and they forgave her, and they bowed down to her with respect. That this is amazing. They had no rancor, they had no anger, and they made her feel very, very respected and with no hatred. And then Bharat begged Ram, "Please come back, you are the king." He said, "No, if I come back, then I would make my father a liar. He told me I have to be in exile 14 years. At that time, Dasarath had already died. So he said, "No, I will stay. I will follow my father's order." So in many ways, Rama and Sita were exemplary, and they established the culture of Bharat by showing you have to be always respectful to your mother and father, even if they do some mean things to you. And you have to always pardon the sinful activities of others and be humble and meek. And you have to always speak gently, never use harsh words, and so on. All these behaviors of Lord Rama became part of the traditional culture of India. And a man should always be faithful to one wife, and a wife should always be faithful to one husband. So then people say, "Oh yes, but why did Rama exile his wife?" Well, he was forced to do that because people did not believe that she was faithful to Rama, because she had been kidnapped almost 1 year by Ravana. But Rama did not want to do it, but he was forced to do it because they were criticizing him also, that he was living with a woman who was unfaithful to him. So, but she was never unfaithful to him. So in any case, before we jump to conclusions, we should understand what Sita actually understood. And she explained, okay, the children have to be quiet, please. Otherwise, you have to take them outside. She explained that she was not upset. And she was upset, but she understood why Rama exiled her. And she went willingly. Bharat took her to the ashram of, I forget his name right now, but I'll think of it. And she lived there. And when her children were born, her two sons, she did not tell them anything about their father. And she definitely did not malign Rama. Later on, when the boys were about 16 years old, they learned the entire Ramayana. And they went to Ayodhya, not knowing who their father was, and they began to chant the whole Ramayana in public, and people were amazed, and eventually they were taken to meet Lord Rama himself. And when they recited the Ramayana to Lord Rama, everybody were crying in ecstasy, hearing their nectarian words of glorification of Lord Rama. And then later on, when the boys went back and they saw their mother, Sita, they said, "Mother," they said, we're a little confused. We went to Ayodhya and we met the king, but there was a big statue, a golden statue of you next to his throne. Why is this?" Because she never told them that they were the children of Rama. And she, at that point, told them, "He is actually your father." And they said, "But he made this golden statue of you. That means he must love you very much." And she said, "Yes, and I love him very much. But I did not want to tell you. I wanted you to discover it yourself." And so the proof that Sita was not angry was she never turned her sons against Rama. She never said anything mean or nasty or derogatory to them. And then that was her gift to her husband. And Sita Devi always remained faithful to Lord Rama. When she was in captivity of Ravana, Ravana was not able to defile her because he had been cursed by a Brahmana that if he ever defiled another woman, he would immediately die. So he had to convince her to surrender to him. And he offered her everything. He said, "You will be my first queen. Mandodari will be your servant, and my other thousand wives will be your servants. And I'll take you all over the universe in my transcendental airplane," that he stole from he stole that airplane. And he said, "And I'll surrender to you. Anything you want, I'll give you." And Sita Devi told him, "Excuse me," she said, "anyone who has seen a swan is not interested in a crow." So she really insulted him, And he warned her. He said, "I'm going to give you a few weeks. If you don't surrender to me, I'll kill you and eat you," because he's a Rakshasa. They eat human beings. Their burger is 2 pieces of bread with a human being body in the middle, you see. So, and there's not much difference between a hamburger and a Ravana burger. It's the same thing. You're eating a dead flesh. But anyway, so Sita always remained faithful to Ram. But when Sita came back to Ram, these rumors were still spreading that Rama was married to an unfaithful wife. And when Sita heard this, she said, "I have never been unfaithful to you, my dear husband," she said. "But to prove this, you build a big fire and I'll walk into the fire with my sari. And let the fire be the proof of whether I was faithful or not." So this is called the ordeal of fire. And they built a big fire, and Sita walked into it. And even her sari was not singed with any fire. And after a long time, Agni Dev took her hand and brought her back and gave her to Rama. Now, what is all this exactly? Actually, you have to hear the Ramayana from genuine devotees to understand all these points. When Ravana came to kidnap Sita, he did not really kidnap Sita. He kidnapped the Maya Sita, who later on took birth as Padmavati and became married to Krishna in Tirupati. It's another story. But who Ravana kidnapped was this Padmavati, or the Maya Sita. And when Sita, the Padmavati, entered the fire, Agni gave Sita Devi, the original Sita Devi, back to Rama. So therefore, the real Sita was never actually touched by Ravana. Okay, now, if you read Ramayana written by mundane people, they don't explain all these things. But if you hear it from bona fide devotees, according to the original Ramayana by Valmiki Muni, all these things are explained. Now, when Rama returned to Ayodhya, then there was a great celebration, and everyone was happy. And eventually, we see that Rama had to exile Sita Devi, because to be a perfect king, you must be above all suspicion. That's why everybody loved Lord Rama in Ayodhya. And there was one Brahmana that made a vow that he would have darshan of Rama every day. Otherwise, he wouldn't eat. But sometimes Rama had to leave Ayodhya on for different reasons. So one time he left and didn't come back for 3 weeks. When he came back and he met Bharat, Bharat was very worried. And Rama said, "Is there something wrong? Did something happen when I was not here?" He said, "Yes. This one Brahmana who made a vow never to eat anything unless he has darshan of you every day. But because you've been out of Ayodhya for 3 weeks, he hasn't eaten anything, he hasn't drunk any water, and he's on the verge of dying. You must go and see him immediately." So Rama went to see him, and he asked the Brahmana, he said, "Why, Brahmana?" He said, "Why are you doing this?" He said, "My lord, I made a vow that unless I have your darshan, I will not eat or drink." So Rama said, "Okay, you're seeing me now. Will you stop this?" He said, "Yes, I will stop it, but I must see you every day." So this is how much people loved Rama in Ayodhya. They were willing to sacrifice everything for him because he was so kind, so gentle, so forgiving, and so magnanimous. So therefore, Rama Rajya was established by Lord Rama. So fast forward to the partition, one goal of Gandhi was to reestablish Ram Rajya. But instead of having Ram Rajya, it turned into Ravana Rajya. So today, there's all kinds of mistakes that have been made, and what I explained before, India is in turmoil. But Rama Rajya is possible if people are trained to live in sattvic guna, or goodness. So therefore it explains here in the Bhagavad Gita further. It says, "The understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, is in the mode of goodness." 18th chapter, 30th verse. One who does not use intelligence to know the scriptural directions given by Krishna becomes entangled in the actions and reactions of work or karma. The person who uses his or her intelligence to discriminate between right and wrong is situated in the mode of goodness. So how do we know if something is right or wrong? In the Vedas, there's a principle called the triangle of verification. A triangle has 3 points. The first point are Krishna's original words in Bhagavad Gita. The second point are the acharyas, who are in the disciplic succession coming from Krishna, who repeat exactly the same things Krishna has said. And the third point is the present guru or gurus. There are 2 types of gurus, Siksha and Diksha Guru, the instructing guru and the initiating guru. If the guru repeats exactly what the acharyas have said, who repeat exactly what Krishna has said, you can close the triangle, the 3 points. Then you know whatever is being said is truthful. If you cannot close the triangle, then you know that what's being said is false. So the example of that was Prahlad Maharaj. His guru was Sukra Acharya. And Sukra Acharya taught him that Yajna Vai Vishnu, that you should offer all your sacrifices to Lord Vishnu. Well, Bali Maharaj once a month would perform dan. He would give charity to brahmanas and to anyone that would approach him, but mostly brahmanas. So, on one occasion, a dwarf brahmana appeared before him, and Sukracharya said, "Don't give him anything." And Bali Maharaj was confused. He said, "Why? He's a brahmana." He said, "No, this is actually Krishna as Vamanadev. He has come to take everything you have." And Bali Maharaj became confused. He said, "But Gurudev, you told me that we should give everything to the Lord." Okay, everyone has to please be quiet. Please be quiet. Please be quiet while the class is going on. We're going to have arti in a minute, and you can make all the noise you want. So, Bali Maharaj said, "Gurudev, you told me that we should offer everything to Vishnu, or God, and why I should not offer to him if he's appearing before me." He said, "No, if you give him everything, how will I get my salary at the end of the month?" So that shocked Bali Maharaj. And he said, "Then I cannot follow your instruction." He said, "Okay, you are committing a great offense. You must follow your Guru's instruction. Therefore, I curse you to lose everything you have." And Bali Maharaj said, "Well, Gurudev, if Vishnu or Krishna takes everything I have, that's the perfection of my life. It all belongs to him anyway." So Bali Maharaj clearly could not close the triangle of verification. Therefore, he refused to accept that principle. So this is something we should learn. If a guru violates the teachings of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of the acharyas who simply repeat Krishna's instructions, then that person is not a guru. That person is a kangaroo. There's a big difference between guru and kangaroo. So guru will repeat the words of the Lord exactly as they are, or yata rup, as they are. And other people will make their own agenda and even distort the teachings that are originally given in Bhagavad Gita to suit their own purposes. Okay, so we'll stop right there, and we'll have arti right now. Now everyone can make as much noise as they want. Hare Krishna. Jayo Jaya Gora Chande Aruti Ke Soba. Jayo Jaya Gora Chande Aruti Ke Soba. Jana Vitatavane Shagamana Loba Jana Vitatavane Shagamana Loba Jayo Jaya Gora Chande Arati Ke Soba Jayo Jaya Gora Chande Arati Ke Soba Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Loba Jana Vitatavane Jagamana Loba Gorang rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Gorangera rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Gorangera rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Gorangera Jagajana manaloba Jagajana manaloba Kibadaki nitaya chan Panmengadat hara Nikate Advaita Shini Chata Nikate Advaita Shini Vasachataram Gorangera Rotik Soba Jagajana manaloba Gorangera rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Gorangera rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Gorangera roti soba Jagajana manaloba Jagajana manaloba Kibaboshi Nachengora Chan Ratna Singasane Aruti Korena Brahma Adideva Gane Gorangera Rotik Soba Jagajana manaloba Gorangera rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Jagajana manaloba Jagajana manaloba Kibanara Hari Adhikari Shamaradulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Gosadigaya Morangira rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Morangira rotik soba Jagajana manaloba Jagajana manaloba Kiba Shanka Baje Ganta Baje Karatala Madhura Midanga Baje Paramarasala Shankha Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Shankha Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Shankha Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Govinda bolo, Hari Gopala bolo. 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 Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Govinda bolo, Hari Gopala bolo. Govinda bolo, Hari Gopala bolo. Govinda bolo, Hari Gopala bolo. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Govinda bolo, Hari Gopala bolo. Hey, Govinda bolo, Hari Gopala bolo. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Govinda bolo, Gopala bolo. Govinda bolo, Gopala bolo. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda bolo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan. Jayo Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan. Gopala Govinda Ram, Shri Madhusudan. Gopala Govinda Ram, Shri Madhusudan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Namaste Narasimhaya, Prahlad Dayini. Namaste Narasimhaya, Prahlad Dayini. Namaste Narasimhaya, Prahlad Dayini. Hiranyakashipur Bhakshahaya, Hiranyakashipur Bhakshahaya, Kilatam Kanakalaye, Ito Nishinga Parato Nishingo, Ito Nishinga Parato Nishingo, Yato Yamitato Nishinga, Daye Nishinga, Daye Nishinga, Baye Nishinga, Daye Nishinga, Narashinga Madim Saranam Prapade. Tavakara Kamala Bare Nakam Adbhuta Singam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringham Keshavadritam Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare Tavakara Kamala Bare Nakam Adhuta Singam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Jagadesha Hare Jaya Narasimhadev, 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 Jaya Narasimhadev. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gora Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol. Jayom Vishnupad, Paramansa Pararajika Chasta Tarasatarishi, Shri Shrimadis Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sukho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavan Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Haribo. Hare Krishna. We want to thank the sponsors of our feast tonight. It's a wonderful thing to sponsor the feast. You make many people happy, and you especially make Krishna happy because his prasad is being distributed to everyone. We want to thank tonight Tejas Thakur and family, Subransu Kumar and family, Rahul Kaparti and family, Ashok Selvaraj and family, Jagan Nemani and family, and Omedra Singh and family. Thank you very, very much for sponsoring the feast. It's a wonderful thing to do, and many people are benefited, and especially you who sponsor are extremely benefited. So we want to thank also everyone who has made pledges this year. On this occasion of Krishna Janmashtami, and I'll quickly read their contributions. Srinivas Sharan has donated $25,000. Adidev Prabhu has donated $1,100. Adidev. No, that's Adidev. And Damodar Hari Prabhu has donated $11,000. Chaitanya Sundar has donated $5,000. Pradumya Das has donated $5,000. Damodar Prasad Prabhu has donated $10,000. Yasoda Dalal has donated $50,000. Samarth, who's only 14 years old, has donated $150. Arjun, who's the same age, is $50. Swarith, $50. Nadahari Priya Prabhu, $5,000. Sridhar Gopal Prabhu, $2,500. Adi Purusha Prabhu, $10,000. Nitin Muzumdar, $2,001. Ramesh Mehta, $251. Akash Baheti, who's a young boy, $51. Raja Raman Prabhu, $10,000. Nitin Malhotra, $3,000. Vidyanath Prabhu, $5,000. Ashwin Prabhu, $1,500. Nishant Mittal, $10,000. Ramji Kanyakumari, $2,500. Jaipal Prabhu, $1,500. Subhranshu Sahu and family, $2,500. Amritananda Prabhu, $3,000. Dhananjaya Prabhu, $1,900. Hemant Malik Prabhu, $2,500. Dwarka Krishna and Radha Mataji, $5,000. And they've also matched that. And then Ram Raghav Prabhu, $1,125. Vipul Goyal or Nanda Maharaj Das, $1,000. And myself, $15,000. Thank you very much for everybody. These are donations that will finish the construction of our Balaji temple in Bellevue, right in the Spring District, the downtown new district of Bellevue, that's going to open hopefully in November of this year. That temple is twice as big as this temple, and there'll be tremendous activity there. There will be two temples there and two major rooms. One is for Balaji and the other is for Radha and Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone. If you would like to donate, please see Damodar Prasad. Where is he?
He wants to donate $450.
$450 from his piggy bank.
Yes.
What is your name? Swari. Yes, Swari. Thank you very much. You can give this to him. And, yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Are you 10 years old? How old are you? 11 years old. This is his piggy bank. He's been saving this money to give to Krishna. Thank you very much. This is the way a temple is built. It's built not with bricks, but it's built with prayers and the goodwill of honest people who want to spread the love of Krishna to everyone. Hare Krishna. Our temple has food trucks that go out and feed homeless people. We have 3 food trucks. 2 of them are going out on a regular basis. The 3rd one is still being finished. And we do major festivals. This year we've done already the Holi Festival in downtown Redmond Park, and the Vegetarian Vegan Raw Food Festival, again in the downtown park of Redmond. The Joyful Festival of India at the Redmond City Hall campus, where at least 20,000 people came. And then we are doing the Janmashtami Festival. 2 days ago, 15,000 people came. Yesterday, about 6,000 people came. It's a gigantic festival here. And then now, next festival is the Ratha Yatra Festival and Flavors of India at Crossroads Park. And on Saturday, September the 3rd, there's a big parade in the streets of Bellevue with our Rath cart. We have a gigantic cart. And there'll be hundreds, maybe thousands of people that are going to parade with Lord Jagannath. And the parade ends at the Crossroads Park in Bellevue, where there's a 2-day festival. After that, we're going to do the Namaste India Festival across the street at the City Hall, Samami City Hall campus, the 2nd week of September. And then the 2nd week of October, we do the Diwali Lights of India Festival at the Seattle Center in the Armory, where all the restaurants are. We usually get 8,000 to 10,000 people that come to that. Why are we doing these major festivals? Not only to show the generosity and the presence of the Indian community in Washington State, but also to create a lot of goodwill so there's no misunderstanding of who the Hindus are. They're good people. They're people who pay their taxes. They're people who don't engage in crime. They're very family-oriented and take care of their kids and educate their kids so they can get good careers and act as good citizens of this country. It's very important that the Hindu community be represented by us, showing all the good-natured and benevolence of people who have come here from a foreign country, who are contributing tremendously to the American country and to the people of America, especially those who are the most vulnerable, the homeless people. We go out on a regular basis, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, and feed the most needy people in this city. So thank you very much. If you support us, you're supporting not us, you're supporting the image of the Hindu community in Washington State. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so now we'll continue our bhajans. We do a lot of bhajans, that way the kids can scream and nobody hears them. But they shouldn't scream during the class, that's all. One second. Choose my song. This is a beautiful bhajan. It's called Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna, or Shri Rajadama Mahi Mamta. And it says, all glories to Radha and Krishna and the divine forest of Vrindavana. All glories to the 3 presiding deities of Vrindavana, Shri Govinda, Gopinatha, and Madana Mohana. So this bhajan takes you on a visit to Vrindavan and all the major temples and major pilgrimage sites there. All glories to Shamakunda, Radhakunda, Govardhana Hill, and the Yamuna River, Kalindi. All glories to the great forest known as Mahavana, where Krishna and Balaram displayed all their childhood pastimes. All glories to Keshigata, where Krishna killed the Keshi demon. All glories to the Vamsivata tree, where Krishna attracted all the gopis to come by playing his flute. Glories to all of the 12 forests of Raja, Vrindavana. At these places, the son of Nanda, Shri Krishna, performed all his pastimes. O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for the boon of impersonal liberation, nor the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon which may be obtained by executing the 9 processes of bhakti. O Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Bala Gopala in Vrindavana may ever be manifest in my heart, for what is the use to me of any other boon or benediction besides this? O Lord, your lotus face, which is encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red, is kissed again and again by Mother Yasoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. O Supreme Godhead, I offer my obeisances unto you. O Damodar, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O my Lord, be pleased upon me by showering your glance of mercy upon me. Deliver this poor ignorant fool who is immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows and become visible to my eyes. O Lord Damodara, just as the 2 sons of Kuvera, Manigriva, and Nalakuvera were delivered from the curse of Narada and made into great devotees by you in your form as a baby, tied with the rope to the wooden grinding mortar, in the same way, please give to me your own prema bhakti. I only long for this and have no desire for any kind of liberation. O Lord Damodara, O Krishna, I first of all offer my obeisances to the brilliantly effulgent rope which binds your belly. I then offer my obeisances to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to you, to your most beloved Srimati Radharani, and I offer all obeisances to you, the Supreme Lord, who displays unlimited pastimes. Gaur Premanandi Haribol. Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Madana Mohan, Madana Mohan. Madana Mohan, Madana Mohan. Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan. Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan. Kalindi Yamuna Jaya Jaya Mahavan. Kalindi Yamuna Jaya Jaya Mahavan. Kesigata Vamsivata Dvadasa Kanan. Jaha Sabalila Koilo Shinanda Nandan. Shinanda Nandan, Shinanda Nandan. Shinanda Nandan, Shinanda Nandan. Shinanda Yasoda Jaya, Jaya Gopagan. Shinanda Yasoda Jaya, Jaya Gopagan. Shidamadi Jaya Jaya Denu Vatsagan. Shidamada Jaya Jaya Denu Vatsagan. Jaya Vishabhanu Jaya Kirtida Sundari. Jaya Vishabhanu Jaya Kirtida Sundari. Jaya Purnamasi Jaya Abhiranagari. Jaya Jaya Purnamasi Jaya Abhiranagari. Jaya Jaya Gopishwara Vrindavana Ma. Jaya Jaya Gopishwara Vrindavana Ma. Jaya 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 Krishna Sakha Bhattu Dvijaraj. Jaya Jaya Krishna Sakha Bhattu Dvijaraj. Jaya Jaya Krishna Sakha Bhattu Dvijaraj. Jaya Rama Gata Jaya Rohini Nandan. Jaya Rama Gata Jaya Rohini Nandan. Jaya Jaya Vrindavana Vasujata Jam. Jaya Jaya Vrindavana Vasujata Jam. Jaya Dvija Patni Jaya Naga Kanyaga. Jaya Dvija Patni Jaya Naga Kanyaga. Bhakti Teja Hara Pailu Govinda Charan. Govinda Charan, Govinda Charan. Govinda Charan, Govinda Charan. Bhakti Teja Hara Pailo Govinda Charan. Shirasa Mandala Jaya Jaya Radha Shan. Shirasa Mandala Jaya Jaya Radha Shan. Jaya Jaya Rasa Lila Sarva Manoram. Jaya Jaya Rasa Lila Sarva Manoram. Jaya Jaya Jwala Rasa Sarva Rasa Sar. Jaya Jaya Jwaja Rasa Sarva Rasa Sar. Parakiya Bhavijaha Bhajate Prachar. Parakiya Bhavijaha Bhajate Prachar. Bhajate Prachar, Bhajate Jar. Bhajate Prachar, Bhajate Prachar. Shijanava Pada Padma Kuriya Smaran. Shijanava Pada Padma Kuriya Smaran. Dina Krishna Dasa Kohi Nama Sankirtan. Nama Sankirtan, Nama Sankirtan. Nama Sankirtan, Nama Sankirtan. Nama Sankirtan, Nama Sankirtan. Bolo Nama Sankirtan, Nama Sankirtan. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan. Bolo Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Madana Mohan, Madana Mohan. Madana Mohan, Madana Mohan. Madana Mohan, Madana Mohan. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol, 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 Bol Haribol. Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Gora Haribol. Haribol, 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 Haribol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitya Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Premanandi ki jai, Shri Radha Nilamadava ki jai, Jagannath Subhadra Baladevi ji ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Lakshmi Nishinga Deva ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Vicharini Visesa Sunvani Paskaticha. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Pararaja Gacha Astatara Satara Shri Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Natakoti Vaishnav Inda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Shri Kohoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glorious is assembled there. All glorious is assembled there. All glorious is assembled the mothers. All glorious is Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glorious is Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavana ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pucharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. The next bhajan is by Jayadev Goswami, And it's about, hey Krishna, hey Gopal, O pleaser of the cows, O protector of the cows, O bearer of the finest hair, O husband of the goddess of fortune, you are very merciful to the fallen souls. You are supremely merciful, O Lord Krishna, supremely merciful, O Keshava, O Madhava, O Dina Doyal. Wearing bright yellow garments and a peacock feather upon your crown, you play the flute and make it sing the name of Radha. You are the cowherd boy that gives great delight, O Lord, the cowherd boy who gives great delight, O Keshava, O Madhava, O Dina Doyal. You, O Krishna, take away our fear of being trapped on the wheel of repeated birth and death in the material world, and you are the splendorous killer of the demon Madhu, the destroyer of all tribulations. You are the supreme resting place for all souls. Gaur Premanandi, Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Doya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Tumi Parama Doyala Prabhu Parama Doyan. Keshava Madhava Dina Doyan. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Pita Basana Parimayur Re Rasika Dori. Murali Vani Tule Boli Radhanam. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Tumi Madhira Gopala Prabhu, Madhira Gopal. Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Bhava Bhaya Vyanjana Shimadu Sudana. Keshava Madhava Dinadaya. Bhavabhaya Vyanjana Shimadu Sudana. Vipada Banjana Tumi Narayan. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dinadaya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dinadaya. Keshava Madhava Dinadaya, Keshava Madhava Dinadaya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dinadaya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dinadaya. Hey Govinda, hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dinadaya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey Govinda, Hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Hey Govinda, Hey Gopal, Keshava Madhava Dina Daya. Haribol, 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 Haribol. Haribol, Haribol, Haribol. Haribol. Thank you. Radha ko naam yana bolo bolo Radhe Radhe. Radha ko naam yana bolo bolo Radhe Radhe. Shama ko naam yana bolo bolo Radhe Radhe. Shama ko naam yana bolo bolo Radhe Radhe. Radha ko naam yana bolo bolo Radhe Radhe. Radha ko naam yana bolo bolo Radhe Radhe. Brahma bhi bole Radhe, Vishnu bhi bole Radhe. Brahma bhi bole Radhe, Vishnu bhi bole Radhe. Sarkar ke damru jawaz ave Radhe Radhe. Shankar ke damru jawaz ave Radhe Radhe. Radha ko naam yana bolo bolo Radhe Radhe. Shama ko naam yana mol bolo Radhe Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Ganga bhi bole Radhe, Yamuna bhi bole Radhe. Ganga bhi bole Radhe, Yamuna ki bole Radhe. Saryu ki dar se आवाज आवे Radhe Radhe. Saryu ki dar se आवाज Radhe Radhe Radhe. Radha ko naam ya namol bolo Radhe Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Chanda bhi bole Radhe, Suraj bhi bole Radhe. Chanda bhi bole Radhe, Suraj bhi bole Radhe. Taron ke mandal se आवाज आवे Radhe Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Chanda bhi bole Radhe, Suraj bhi bole Radhe. Taron ke mandal se आवाज आवे Radhe Radhe. Gaya bhi bole Radhe, Pachda bhi bole Radhe. Gaya bhi bole Radhe, Pachda bhi bole Radhe. दूध की धार से आवाज आवे Radhe Radhe. दूध की धार से आवाज आवे Radhe Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Gopi bhi bole Radhe. Gopi bhi bole Radhe, Gwala bhi bole Radhe. Gopi bhi bole Radhe, Gwala bhi bole Radhe. Brij ki sab galiyon se आवाज आवे Radhe Radhe. ब्रज की सब गलियों न से आवाज आवे राधे 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 श्याम को नामिया न मोलो बोलो राधे राधे राधा को नामिया न मोलो बोलो राधे 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare Hare Radhe 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 Haribo Shrimati Radharani ki jai. Thank you. The great saint and poet Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written this beautiful bhajan. It's called Udila Aruna Puraba Bhaje. And he says, when the rising sun appeared in the east, the jewel of the twice-born Lord Gaura Sundara awakened, and taking his devotees with him, he went all over the countryside, towns and villages. The mridangas, or kol, resounded tatai tatai, and the jangja, large metal kartalas that look like large metal kartalas. In that kirtana played in time. Lord Gauranga's golden form slightly trembled in ecstatic love of Godhead, and his footbells jingled. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. All the devotees chanted the names of Mukunda, Madhava, Yadava, and Hari, their mouths being filled with the vibrations. They would announce to the still sleeping people, you spend your nights uselessly sleeping and your days decorating your bodies. You have achieved such a rare human body, but you do not care for this gift. You remain not serving the darling of Yasoda and slowly fall through your last moments to death. With every rising and setting of the sun, a day passes and is lost. Then why do you remain idle and not serve the Lord of the heart? This temporary life is full of various miseries. Take shelter of the holy name as your only business. To penetrate the darkness of ignorance and bless everyone's heart, the holy name has risen like the shining sun. Drink the pure nectar of the holy name of Krishna. There is nothing but the name to be had in the 14 worlds. It has filled the soul of Shri Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Udilaya Runa Puraba Bhaje Tujamani Gohora Amani Jage. Pakata Samuha Loila Sate Jela Nagara Braje. Tatai tatai ajaloko gana gana tai janjiraro. Prema dala dala sonara anga sharane nupura bhaje. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo. Mukunda Madhava Yadava Hari, Bolo re Vadana Boli. Michenida Base Jelo Airati, Divasa Sarira Saje. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare Bolo. Manadulaba manavadeho Payaki koro babana keho Ebena bajile yasoda suta Sharame bori belache Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo. Udita tapana hoile asta Dinachilo bole hoi byasta Tabeke no ebe Allah sahoy Nabakya vordaya raje Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bolo. Uditap tapana hoile asta Dinajino boli hoi beasta Tabeke no ebe Allah sahoy Nabaje daya raje Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bolo. Jivana anitya jahata Tahina nabida vipadabar Namasaya kori jatane tumi Takahat apana kaje Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jivere kayana sadhana kam Jagati asiye maduranam Abhidyatimira tapana rupe Hidagagane biraje Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna nama sudha kodiyapa Shurayo bhakati vinoda pran Nama bina kichu nahi ko ara Shuddha bhuvana maje Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Nitai Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai. Something's wrong with this harmonium. There's a little sound that's coming out. Haribol. Well, thank you very much. And now it's time for pizza. Who said that? Who said that? Haribol.